Hi, and welcome to another video. As you may know, the 4X strategy game Humankind has been out for over a week now, giving me plenty of time to test the game extensively. I feel that I now have enough knowledge of the game to provide some useful tips and tricks for those that are new to the game and 4X strategy genre in general. But before we dive into the video, I have recently done a review of the game, so for those who don't know if they want to buy it or want to see what all the fuss is about, then I advise you to go and check it out. The link will be in the description. My name is DanIsStoned, and you're watching 7 tips and tricks for newcomers to Humankind. So let's roll. Bim bam boom.
You are watching DanIsStoned.
First of all, do not found your first outpost in haste. One of the most common mistakes to make is to settle your first outpost as soon as you get the required influence. Take your time to find the right spot. It's important to remember that you start in the Neolithic era as a nomadic tribe. You are meant to forage for food and explore the map in order to find the perfect location to settle that first outpost. Settling in the right area can make one hell of a difference to the growth and the production rate of your future city. Look for rivers and coastline that provide food, and hills for defensive positions. Better to spend a few extra turns searching for that nice location that is ideal for a future city. Moving on to tip number 2, which is in the Neolithic era, try to grab as many units as possible before you change to the Ancient era. As a nomadic tribe, you are hunters and gatherers, and thus have the ability to acquire food by collecting plants and hunting animals such as deer and woolly mammoths. Once a unit of tribesmen gathers a certain amount of food, it will spawn a second unit of tribesmen. It is important to try and gain as many tribesmen as you can before you hit the second era, in which your tribesmen will become scouts and it will no longer be possible to forage for food and gain units. But why is it important to gain as many units as possible before you hit the next era? Well, there are multiple reasons. First of all, having more units allows you to scout the land faster for potential outpost and city sites. Secondly, they are useful for defensive and offensive purposes. Grouping multiple tribes or scout units depending on the era will allow you to defend your outposts as they are being created from enemy troops. They can also be used as offensive weapons, allowing you to constantly raid and destroy other cultures' outposts as they found them, effectively boxing them in and limiting their capacity to expand, all while in the time you stroll around founding outposts where you see fit. And finally, you can use these scouts to beef up your first city. If you disband a scout unit within the borders of your city, you gain a pop on that very city. Depending on how many scouts you have, you can easily disband a few and gain a nice jump in pop numbers, increasing the productivity of your city. Moving on to tip number 3, which is always place your outpost as if you are planning to build it into a future city. You may never know, circumstances may change, and an outpost that was intended to be attached to a city might need to change into a city itself. Always take the time to find the right location in a region. Again, look for viable food sources such as rivers or coastline, and think about defensive positioning. Next up is do not attach outposts to cities as soon as the outpost is created. Wait a bit first. Well, why might you ask? Well, outposts just like cities can gain pops, up to a maximum of 4. The speed at which they gain these pops depends on the amount of food that surrounds the outpost, bringing us nicely back to the previous tip. When you attach the outpost to the desired city, that city then gains the outpost's pops. But if you attach the outpost straight away without waiting to gain any pops, then the city will not receive any extra, and as soon as the outpost is attached, it loses the ability to gain pops. This is why it is worth waiting for a few turns for that outpost to gain some pops before joining it to the city. Extra pops means more production. Tip number 5 is to use synergies. Districts can synergize with each other depending on where you place them, so take your time when planning where to build these districts. A good example is farming quarters. Farming quarters increase the production of food on a tile as well as the number of farmer slots available for your pops. Each farmer's quarters gains an additional +1 food for each adjacent farmer's quarter. Build these farmers' quarters adjacent to each other on a river, and then the water building, for example, will increase food production further. I could go even further if I wanted to. If I were to choose the Babylonians as my first culture in the ancient era, then I would gain access to the astronomy house district that increases your science per adjacent farmer's quarter. I guess you can now see where I'm going with this. Build an astronomy house on the river tiles surrounding some farmer's quarters, and bim bam boom, you have nice science and food synergy. All of this to say that it's important to plan where you want to build your districts. Spend some time thinking about the layout, and you will be rewarded in the long run. Moving on to the next tip, and that is to use those trade routes. Trading luxury items with other cultures is a must. They provide you with some really nice bonuses, ranging from increasing food, science and industry production, all while increasing the amount of stability in your cities. This ties nicely with the previous tip, because building all those districts for those neat synergies is going to cost you quite a bit of stability. But remember, do not depend on one culture for the bulk of your trade. If you happen to go to war with that nation, you will lose all the buffs from that associated trade, and your stability can tank since you no longer can maintain those massive amounts of districts. Ever thought that it takes ages to build holy sites and wonders? Well, fear not, their construction can be shared by multiple cities. Set multiple cities on the construction of these sites, and they will be built in a flash. Anyway, that's it for this video. And if you made it to the end, then thank you. If you found this video helped in any way, shape or form, then why don't you go ahead and hit that like button. And if you really enjoyed it, you can even subscribe to the channel if you're interested in watching more content. With all that said and done, thank you all for watching, and I shall catch you all in the next one. Bye for now.